Okay, by this point in time, you should be able to launch Sage. We've already gone through several ways of doing that. Hopefully you're able to launch Sage at this point from a terminal, from the Finder. And if you're using a web-based version, which I strongly discourage you from doing that, you should be able to launch Sage on the web if you like. All right. Now I want to point out this double equal sign. It's an equation, and the question over here is 9 the same thing as 9? It should be true, right? Now if I do it 9, is it less than or equal to 10? That should also be true. All right, you get the idea that these are basically Booleans. Now if I type in something like this, 3 star x minus 10, is that the same thing as a number 5? Well, conditionally it is, but not in general. But conditionally it would be true. All right, now what value would that be true when x is equal to 5? So our objective here is how to solve the equation. So what I want to do is solve. And I want to solve this equation right here. I'm going to copy paste. I just selected it, copied it, and I want to solve it for x and see what happens. And I said the answer should be 5. X is 5. You notice it puts it in this listing, and it says x is 5. And that's in a listing now. All right? That's an important fact, by the way. You could type in the other equations. And again, some are pretty simple. I want to go through this one over here. I'm just going to do a copy paste. And again, if you're confused by doing things by hand, you can be confused by looking at the output. But the solution to this inequality is x is greater than or equal to 11. All right? This is a quadratic inequality. And again, if you're not familiar with solving a quadratic inequality, the answers might look pretty strange to you. I'm sorry, equality. So let's just type this in, solve. This is an equation, x squared plus x equals to 6, and we're solving for the variable x. It says minus 3 or 2. There's 2 answers there. All right? So forth and so on. Sometimes the answer looks very strange to you, complex solutions. All right? Sometimes I just want to list the solution out. I'll type this one down for you. And the solution is, that's an assignment operator, solve. And I'm going to solve 2 star x squared minus x plus 1 equals 0 for x. And it's in solution. If I want to display that, it would list the solutions down for that. Okay, that's stored now. Now let me type this in, SOLN. And someone says, what is this? Well, Sage starts counting at 0. So what's this doing is looking at the list, and it's going to put the first entry down. And this is the first entry. So they start counting at 0. All right, now if I did 1, it's going to give me the second entry. And that's the entry right over here. All right. Now let's say you just didn't want the x equal part. You just want the right side of that. So I could do right-hand side. I could also do left-hand side. And that should be x. I think you get the idea. This is an interesting equation, very famous. And it's solve e to the x is equal to minus 1 for x. And you get I pi for that. All right, this is a quadratic inequality. Again, if you know how to do a quadratic inequality, your answer is not going to make much sense to you. You should be able to do these by hand. And part of that is to learn the output. What does this say? X is less than or equal to minus 3. Or the x is greater than or equal to 3. All right? So again, it gets a little bit confusing sometimes if you don't understand how to do things by hand. All right, here's a trig equation. This wants to solve sine of x for x. And something interesting happens over here. It just comes back with the same statement. X equals sine x. All right, and be aware of that. A lot of times you're going to get an answer returned back to you. You can say, why didn't it do it? And it's a good question why it didn't do it. You can do it by hand, but why didn't it do it? All right, and you'll see that quite often. Here's another command, and it's really the same type of thing, but I'm not using solve now. I'm saying find the root. Find the root of that. All right, between minus pi over 2 and pi over 2. And it says it's 0. Well, the exact answer is 0, by the way. That's another command. It's a useful command. This one over here, let's type it in. I'm just copying it, by the way. That's done. Again, if you try to solve that without using find root, it would come back as couldn't do it. Now declaring variables, let me clear my screen. And typically in Sage, x is a variable, but I certainly like to define it, but you don't have to. X is a default variable. But when you define variables in Sage, you're going to list them. I'm going to say yzt, and I'm going to tell Sage our variables now. And I'm going to say y is a variable. I'm putting in single quotes. Z is a variable, and t is a variable. Now I can use these now. I can also use words. Put this over here for variables. All right, you can use words for variables. They go in quotes again. I want to point out, a lot of students will try to copy paste this. I want to point out there's going to be an error now. And I hope you see there's an error. And if it tells me, it says invalid character. What's the invalid character of these things over here? So I'm going to type over that. You should define your variables before using them. All right, no error there. I think you get the idea. Subscripted variables, I type them in this way. You might want to do something a little bit different than I'm doing. All right, this is solving a system of linear equations. And again, hopefully you're familiar with that. Relatively simple to do. And it comes up with a solution for x and y for that. All right. All right, this is a system of linear equations and 3 unknowns, and Sage has no trouble with it, right? Now this one here, there's like a dummy variable over here, which is some parameter. They're saying z could be any number in the universe, any real number. And once you compute this, they say y could be any real number as well, and that's what x would equal that, all right? So this one's solving an inequality, a little more difficult to understand, by the way, but still, doable. You want to type that stuff in and try to make sense out of it. Then there's some exercises, and try to work through that, all right? Now, again, you may have to go back and look at the notes to try to make sense out of the questions. We're not asking you to memorize things. We're asking you to think about things. There's a difference. Thank you.